I did what anybody would do, probably in my position, which was throw money at the hardware. All right, well, let's max out the platform we're on. And we do that, and it would work for a couple of months, but then our subscribers kept growing. And eventually, we'd start crashing the platform again. And so if they try to submit it to us and it doesn't work, then they're gone forever. And, our client could miss out on a 6 or 7 figure case. And then we lose, upwards of anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 a month in revenue from just one case. Once we hit about 250,000 subscribers and we started sending out that big blast of email, we started crashing. It took your guys about 10 minutes to go, oh yeah, your forms, and you've got all these active forms on your website. There's these 5 lines of code. And if we comment out those lines of code, we're going to take the pressure off the database. You won't crash anymore. And you did that, and we didn't crash.
So this is one of those situations where it's good to have a managed WordPress company hosting your site, because they'll have engineers that will be able to understand what's going on, and secondarily, have the ability to engage and make changes on your behalf.
You just can't bring one expert into a business and have them, even if they're extremely experienced, have them have the breadth of knowledge that you need when you guys deal with hundreds of different companies on a daily basis. And my guy just deals with one. So that's my advice to entrepreneurs is just don't necessarily go out and hire the super techiest, most expert guy you can get. Look at your money and see if you can bring that in to a partner that will handle it, so you can focus those big dollars on something else to help you actually grow your business and not just support it.
Okay, we will get started then. This is Sean. Welcome to the people that are tuning in. This is our second video case study. And on the line with us is Scott Hardy of Top Class Actions. Scott, I'll let you kind of introduce what that business is. We've been longtime acquaintance and friends, and maybe you can kind of introduce yourself.
Sure, yeah. I'm Scott Hardy of Top Class Actions. I started Top Class Actions 11 years ago, and it was all with the goal of bringing consumers the unclaimed cash out there from class action settlements. And so I had the idea when I was flipping through the internet, and I saw these class action settlements, and I said, man, there's got to be a website which tracks these easy to claim settlements. Well, there wasn't, so I built it. And now we've grown leaps and bounds over the years. Now we get 1.25 million viewers a month. And we originally started on a Joomla platform because originally it was supposed to be me and then my IT engineer guy and my kind of senior executive money raiser guy. And then when it came that time to actually put in money into the business, those 2 guys dropped out, leaving just me. I used to be an IT manager and into IT, so I've got just enough knowledge to get myself in trouble and to think I know what the heck I'm talking about, and really to infuriate engineers, because now I'm that executive that says, hey guys, if we build this database, you can just spin that up in a couple of days, right? That's like a day job. I'm like, no, Scott, that's 6 months and, hundreds, if not thousands of hours of engineering time. But so we put it all up on Joomla, and it was just me, writing articles, adding plugins, and, making the website grow. And that was okay when we had tens of thousands of viewers, but we kept maxing out web platforms. And then Joomla at that point wasn't very efficient. So after looking at different platforms, we said, okay, let's go to WordPress. And so we did. We migrated over to WordPress. And our business is largely built on user submissions. So, we get paid. We don't charge consumers to access our website. We get paid by attorneys to advertise on the website. And what that entails is we run the advertisement on the website. People go, yes, that happened to me. I'm going to go ahead and type in my information and submit the information directly to the attorney. So we've got a whole bunch of submission forms. Right now, I just looked, and we've got over 1,000 plus submission forms from everything that we've done in the past. But actively, we've got anywhere from 50 to 75 campaigns going at a time. And it turned out, as our traffic kept growing, we also have a big email list. And our email list now goes out to 700,000 subscribers, and that goes out every Tuesday. And so once we hit about 250,000 subscribers and we started sending out that big blast of email, we started crashing. And, I'm not a coder and I don't have a full-time engineer. At that point, this was still a side gig for me that was just bringing in good money and paying for vacations, but you got to be up, right? And so I did what anybody would do probably in my position, which was throw money at the hardware. All right, well, let's max out the platform we're on. And we'd do that, and it would work for a couple of months, but then our subscribers kept growing. And eventually, we'd start crashing the platform again once that newsletter would go out. And so we bounced among a number of different providers. And at that point, we got to the point where I was doing the job full time, and I would flip out, and you've had to deal with me when I flip out on occasion, Sean. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck? We're crashing. I've got thousands and thousands of people hitting the website and they can't get to us. I'm losing money. The sky is falling. I feel like I'm dying here. What are we going to do? And different managed WordPress platforms give different answers. Some of them said, oh, it's your code. And I'm like, hey, I get it. We went from Joomla to WordPress. Our code sucks. Our backend code sucks. I get it. But we still need to be up. So some said, well, pay these guys. Let's pay these guys $10,000. You're going to optimize your code. So we write a check for 10 grand. And then lo and behold, a week later, the website crashes again. Well, crap, that didn't work. I go to a different provider with bigger, more robust servers. Scott, we won't crash. Great. We go ahead and send out the newsletter. Boom, we crash. Crap. And they say, well, Scott, pay these guys $35,000 and they will optimize your code and then you won't crash. Man, that's we just did this kind of code scrubbing. I know our code is great, but we don't have a lot of video. Our stuff isn't bandwidth heavy. It's all text. Sorry, my dog is going off. And so, we're just a text website with some pictures. So come on, guys, it's not like when I was with Limelight Networks and we're, streaming gigabits worth of video here. That's not the case. Why are we going to go ahead and crash? And so then we would, we ended up talking to you, Sean, and I said, hey, I need a new platform that can handle these huge bursts of traffic. And you said, Scott, I'm working with Pagely now. We can go ahead and get this working for you. And we went to Pagely, and you said, great, hey, we're built on Amazon. We can go ahead and structure this however we need to. We can scale for you. And we went to you guys, and we crashed. And I went, what's going on? And then talking to your engineering team, because of course I don't have that back engineering team. I've got web developers, but not people that know the hardware. It took your guys about 10 minutes to go, oh yeah, your forms, and you've got all these active forms on your website. There's these 5 lines of code. And if we comment out those lines of code, we're going to take the pressure off the database. You won't crash anymore. And you did that, and we didn't crash.
Yeah, well, so
and
this
that
is
was
let me actually,
huge.
This is a good segue because I've got a list of issues here. I also just wanted to quickly introduce for the folks listening, Armand Zakarian is our head of hosting ops, and he's on the call as well. So thank you, Armand.
And I love Armand.
I love you too, man.
And this is the first time you guys have met. Again, this is all, what's interesting about these video case studies is Armand only through support history and tickets and chats. And so this is actually the first time that we're all, the 3 of us, talking face to face.
Yeah, great to finally meet you.
Cool. So Scott, what I did is I actually went back and read through half of your support history. There was like 140 tickets, and I read about 70 of those chronologically, started from the beginning when you guys became a customer. And the issue that you're referring to, like right away, I noticed, like within, I think, a week of you guys joining Pagely, Oscar discovered that the Gravity Forms plugin because you guys get so much traffic, this is a plugin which normally doesn't have this issue for most people, but because you guys get so much, you have so many pages and so many instances of these forms and so many visitors, that it logs, it does a database query on every page view with the view count, and that was the problematic thing. And so Oscar, I believe, was able to determine, if we just comment out and patch the plugin, we can remove that issue, and then it's not a problem. So I think that was the first, or at least the one that I have here pulled out. That was like the first real thing that we solved, it seemed like. And Armand, correct me if I'm wrong on this. So I know at least initially it was done in such a way where every time Gravity Forms issued an update, it was stomping on Oscar's changes. But I think since then, we've been able to do it in a more durable way. And I was wondering if you could maybe just comment on what that is.
Yeah, so that was just using the add filter functionality in WordPress to load a separate must-use plugin. So that just lays on top of whatever settings there are in the plugin itself, and just add something on top of it. So whenever the plugin gets updated, you don't lose that change because you're not editing the plugin's code. It's in a separate path. It's a separate file as an MU plugin.
Cool. And so this is like, for the people listening, I guess the best analogy there is this is the equivalent of when you use like a child theme, so that the updates to the parent theme don't stomp on your updates, your changes that you've made. This is essentially the same thing, where a patch can be issued to a plugin and it's not going to get overridden when the new plugin updates are coming out. But okay, so Scott, back to your situation. So that sounds like that was really the first thing that we solved for you guys there, was that Gravity Forms issue. And at the time, you said you have 700,000 subscribers now. I think back in the day, I logged it looked like 185,000 subscribers at that time. So if you guys were then, I can only imagine, you've 6x'd that number nearly, which is pretty impressive, or about 5x it. Okay, so I'm gonna skip ahead here, and I have these all logged chronologically. But now we're talking. So you guys became a customer in May of 2015. Somewhere around August, like late August of 2015, it sounds like we discovered an issue with poor cache hit rate. And Armand, maybe you can kind of just briefly deconstruct what the nature of that was, what was happening there.
Yeah, so whenever you use a page caching layer on your WordPress site, you need to either account for purging to occur whenever you update content, so that visitors don't get outdated pages, or you need to be doing cache control max age headers to say when a page is due to expire. So one of the benefits of Pagely is we take care of those details for you. You get some Pagely management plugins that come included with your app by default, and what our Pagely Press Cache plugin does is it keeps a lookout for certain events happening in WordPress. When you're creating a new post or page, when you're updating something, when you're deleting something, those events trigger a purge to happen with our own caching layer. And so something that can happen is, certain plugins will be creating posts when they're taking other operations. If you have someone signing up for the newsletter, they submit that's creating a post, and then sending them an email with a link to that post. That's like a personalized page. So that activity can create a purge storm if you have a lot of people doing that. And so one of the things that we can do that gives us flexibility with our platform is we can exempt certain pages from being affected by those purge requests. So we can keep the home page from being purged, and that usually keeps things at bay if there's a lot of people going to the home page. And then we can also exempt certain post types from issuing a purge. And so that with that second one, it's really important to have visibility on when that happens. So we do have logging of that. When it does skip purging for a specific post type that we configured, then it'll put that in a log file. So you can just kind of have a sanity check and make sure it's working as expected. So those optimizations kept the system running more stable. less work for the server to go and process all those purges in the first place, and then more cache hit rate, which results in faster load times for visitors.
And so to be clear why this is such an issue, just real quick, one second.
Question for you.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick. So the reason this is so bad, this isn't just like someone missing cache on, like when you have people that come in and they have something like a dynamic or they're filling out a form, it misses cache for that one person, but this is actually purging cache for the entire site. So now that every subsequent page request, you have like this massive, spike of needing to do a bunch of dynamic processing. So no cache is being able to be used site-wide at that point. Is that correct, Armand?
So when you're updating a page, it will only purge the cache for that page, in addition to the base URLs that we always purge. Those being the home page and like feed URLs. So whenever you update one piece of content, it's not issuing a full purge.
Okay.
But the home page being purged alone, whenever there was all these other unrelated things being updated, like that activity was enough to cause some load issues. So we just exempted the home page from being included in that.
Got it. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Now, did that happen because we publish so much new content? Because we publish anywhere from 120 to 150 new articles per week that are all news articles on the class action settlement lawsuit side of things. Is that why? Because the homepage wasn't was getting updated so frequently during the day?
So it was that activity, and it was also each newsletter sign up. Each visitor doing a sign up was triggering a purge too. So it's kind of both. But
Ooh.
Yeah, especially like during large newsletter sends, if you have a lot of people doing signups, which is a good thing, like you have people engaged on your site, and you're, for the use case of top class actions, you're hopefully like helping people with problems that they have in real life. So it's a good thing that that's happening, but just making sure that the server knows how to handle that the right way so it doesn't fall down.
Yeah, I mean, because now we're getting 4,000 to 10,000 new newsletter signups a week.
Mm-hmm.
So glad you fixed it.
That's great. Yeah. We're really happy that we've been able to keep you guys running and running faster and larger.
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing to do is to build a business that draws that much interest. And, so it's like at the point where you stand to lose the most is where it sucks. You send out a newsletter to all these people and you have all those eyeballs. And so it's critical that we keep it online during that point. So the cache is definitely important for that. So next issue I noticed, so March 21st of 15, it sounds like you guys got hit with a bunch of bot traffic. And Armand, maybe can you just, for the people listening who don't know what bot traffic is, could you just briefly summarize like what is a bot?
Yeah, so a bot is just a system out there on the internet that anyone can run, and it uses your website's sitemap to determine what content to index about your site. And so, the most well-known bots out there like Google, Bing, large names like that. But there's a lot of other search engine indexes out there. They exist like all over the world. They're run by different people. And so if you've ever heard of robots.txt, that's the most general purpose way to give instructions on how those bots should treat your site. You can say, don't index this path, or only go at this certain rates to keep the server from getting overloaded. So unfortunately, some bots out there don't really honor those rules. And some of them, they just go as fast as they can. And generally it's up to the site owner to make that decision on like, hey, I want to block this bot. I don't really have any interest in them indexing my site. But obviously you want Google or Bing or the other big names to have access to index your site. And those bigger names usually will honor those robots.txt rules. And some of them actually let you specify more specific settings on their sites. So yeah, it was just pretty much a another day in the life at Pagely for us. Like, okay, well, there's a bot scraping the site. Scott, do you want this bot scraping your site? No. Okay, we blocked it. So pretty cut and dry incident that time.
And for a normal site, or not normal, but like an average size site, let's say like 20 or 30 pages, a bot is not a super big issue. But because Scott has, I mean, Scott, how many pages do you have? Like hundreds of thousands of pages, right?
Yeah, hundreds of thousands now. Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's crazy, and
pages, you know, you do.
It's too much, especially because now we just target the U.S. and so we used to block all other countries from accessing us. And that was largely because we had so many hacking attempts from everywhere from Korea to Ukraine, Russia, you know, Brazil, North Korea. I mean, it's crazy the number of just bots that are just hitting the website just trying to get access, and having to block all that is crazy. You know, we do use like Cloudflare as well as your caching system, and you know, there's so much. I mean, there are websites now that all they do is just copy other websites to try to get you to go to their website so they can password phish you.
Yeah.
And you know, it's insane, especially once you've got a larger website with a big following like we do, how much of a target it makes you. So it's nice that we've got you guys in there kind of looking at the back end, and you're taking a look, seeing who's knocking on that door and who's knocking on that door a million times a second to try to get in.
Right. Right. And Armand, so I just want to be clear here. So it's like the way to think about this is robots.txt is for those bots that are going to respect it. You know, those are like the instruction set to the ones that actually listen to what you're asking them to do. And so Google, for instance, if you tell them, hey, I want you to crawl me, you know, once a week between these hours, it'll honor that request. But these more nefarious bots are not going to listen to robots.txt. They're just going to hammer the site as hard as they can. And so that's where the second line of defense comes in, which is this idea of rate limiting by IP address. It sounds like we have some other sophistication there of being able to, you know, block also by user agent, not just IP address. So we have different ways of recognizing bot traffic and making rules for restricting it.
Yeah, so some of those mechanisms are automatic and just a default part of the system. You don't really have to do anything out of the box to make it work. But we do have the ability to specify block rules or rate limiting rules for, you know, all types of different qualifiers, whether that's IP address or user agent or a combination of things, the type of request that they're making or the HTTP refer that they're coming from. So that flexibility lets us sort of, you know, block off things that are obviously bad. Like it may be falling into our general rate limiting rules, but maybe it's not kicking in fast enough. So we can tighten those rules up. We can put custom rules to fit what's happening to a given site. And that's just like a normal course of business for us. We don't really have to go out of our way to break how we normally do things to apply those customizations.
So we have like an umbrella rule set that applies for all customers, but we also have this ability on a per customer basis or a per site basis to then do some specific, more sophisticated things if there is unique traffic that we were trying to exclude for that site, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right, well, this is also a good segue because this is related to security, and I noticed it looks like in January of 16, they were getting brute force for passwords. So maybe you can kind of explain what we do there in that situation. I noticed it looked like we had actually kind of proactively noticed that and then contacted them and said, hey, you may want to contact these folks and make sure that these accounts aren't compromised. Because we can actually see what accounts they're trying to hit and brute force the passwords for.
Yeah, so, you know, we have some specific hardening around the most sensitive parts of a WordPress site. If someone is trying to brute force a password over and over again and they fail enough times, they're going to get hit with a CAPTCHA just so that they can prove that they're human and not a robot. And then if they go over a certain rate, they get rate limited. You know, we're also, we have human beings that are watching and reviewing the logs on site. So if something catches our attention, we're going to be looking into it very, very deeply and reaching out and seeing if there's any additional measures that we need to take. Most of the time, the what we call press armor layer, all the hardening that we apply, which obviously I'm not going to share specifics about how it works.
Security, you keep it close to the vest at some point.
Yeah, most of the time, the press armor will keep things at bay. It'll either stop something from happening, or something does happen, it's going to notify us, and we're going to notify you. We're going to help you remediate the problem. Sometimes websites do get hacked. It doesn't look like it got to that point for top class actions. So, but yeah, it's mostly the CAPTCHAs and the rate limiting will stop it. And if something does happen to get through, we have daily malware scanning that will catch any suspicious payloads. We're always updating those signatures. And then we do also have some virtual patching that we apply at the gateway layer before something can even make it to WordPress. So that kind of keeps you at a certain level of sanity. Just to know that some malicious requests won't even make it to your WordPress app. They'll just stop at the gateway layer.
And Scott, I would imagine you guys, given the nature that you're how do you say this? Like you have the potential to piss off a lot of big pharma brands or people, that might not want you to exist because you're proliferating like class action lawsuit stuff. I would imagine the security has got to be really important to you guys.
Yeah, security is critical because we get so many. I get at least 1 or 2 cease and desists every single month from different billion-dollar companies that are unhappy with us. And so we need to make sure that everything's locked down. Heck, we cover data breaches and the class action lawsuits that are connected. So we don't want to be the ironic case where it's top class actions and we get hit with a data breach class action by one of our clients because somebody got in. So we are super conscious about everything. So that's and I think it helps too that I am a nerd and a freaking huge geek. You and I met at Tempe Geeks back when that was the thing here in Phoenix. And so even when I first started to launch top class actions, making sure that we're secure and had additional layers in place to make sure that we don't get hacked was huge. I was a hacker back in the 90s, back when it was dial-up and war dialing, and that was me. So I've got a very sensitivity to keeping the website secure. And, we get thousands of submissions from viewers every single day, and we need to keep their data safe. So, yeah.
Cool. Well,
it's personal.
We'll leave it at that in terms of what we can talk about on the security front, but I think it's clearly important to you guys, so I'm glad we're able to help in that regard. All right, I'm going to jump to the next one. This is an interesting theme. It's presented a couple of times. This was related in March of 16, so same month or shortly after. You guys installed Easy Digital Downloads for commerce. And it sounded like because that plugin happened to use a session cookie, then that reinitiated this whole cache issue where suddenly cache wasn't working. And so that created a spike. But Armand and I were talking before we got on here. What's interesting is because we're a host and we get exposure to a lot of these, we tend to have a relationship with the plugin authors themselves. So Gravity Forms and Easy Digital Downloads. And so we can actually reach out to them directly and in the case as it was with this one, able to work with them. And so in this instance, Easy Digital Downloads was able to issue a patch to their plugin, which allowed it to filter out certain traffic. So like if out of 100 people, only one person actually needed that cookie that was being set for all 100. And so they issued an update, which then gave us a setting to say, okay, exclude those 99 people and only use that cookie on this one who actually needs the cookie based on a button press. Armand, is there anything else in terms of that fix that you wanted to add?
No, so the fix in these situations is usually very straightforward. The troublesome part is, like you said, having that line of communication, and that's one of the benefits of working with a managed WordPress hosting company. And Pagely is, obviously, we have some good relationships with these plugin authors. We actually host some of them ourselves. So, if you just break down those communication barriers, it's really easy to get something fixed. We could say, hey, this is what we're seeing for one of our clients. This is how our platform works, which is just using standard page caching methods. And this is what we think would be great if the plugin worked this way. And usually they're very receptive, and they say, oh yeah, here, that's going to go out in the next update, or here's a pre-release patch that you can apply on the plugin, and now it's working a lot better.
Yeah, well, they want it to work. They're motivated, well aligned. They want their own plugin to work, so that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I mean, the things that we usually try to get fixed are things that will help you on any hosting solution that's using a caching layer, whether that's Varnish or Nginx, anything that respects the cache control and set cookie header values. Those same fixes will benefit you anywhere else.
Cool. All right, well, I'm going to limit it to just maybe 2 or 3 more issues here in the interest of everyone's time. It looked like a month later, in April of 16, there was an issue with SSL and Cloudflare. And so maybe just explain what Cloudflare is to those folks who are not familiar with it. Scott was using it on his site, and so maybe you can talk about what that was.
Yeah, so Cloudflare is a content distribution network. It also has a focus on security and preventing attacks for your website. So most of the benefits you get from that is you get the widespread of their CDN. So if someone is in a different geographical location from where your server is located, it's going to benefit from the caching. And they have some nice features, like if your website's under attack, you just go into Cloudflare and say, I'm under attack. And then it will put up some additional verifications and things for visitors. Somewhat like a little interstitial page, but it helps to verify that that's a legitimate visitor before it sends you through the website. But I think the issue was basically just a simple configuration problem with which is just causing a redirect loop. There was SSL cert for the topclassactions.com, but not for www, I believe. And we turned off the forced SSL in the meantime and switched on flexible setting on Cloudflare just to get the site back online. And then we took a look and fixed things up so that it would work correctly over the full SSL mode, and then we had them turn that back to the full security mode. Anytime you're using a proxy service like Cloudflare or Fastly or what have you, your website visitors are visiting that company's servers, and then that server is acting as a proxy or a broker to communicate with your server. So even if you have SSL on Cloudflare, if you don't have SSL on your origin servers, that's somewhat of a security issue. So getting that to work sometimes where it's SSL all the way through the whole system can cause some problems sometimes. It's just about having the staging environment up first and testing it out there, and making sure that you do have HTTPS at every point to keep all the communications secure.
And Sean, something I'd like to call out here is that we had, with all the SSL problems we had back then, it was nice when I got an email from Pagely just this month or last month saying, hey, we noticed your SSL cert's expiring within the next 30, 60 days, whatever it was. What do you need us to do to help you out on that? And I went back and forth with them a couple of times on support, and they gave me what I needed, and I went and got my SSL cert certified. It took me once I knew what I needed, it took me 60 seconds, and I sent it in, and you guys got it updated. So it's nice that you guys are on top of those types of issues because, I'm busy running the company and I don't necessarily pay attention to that. Last time, I think it just expired. And then I flipped out and all hell was breaking loose.
Yeah.
And instead, you guys actually gave me the heads up and made sure it was done weeks before it actually expired. So good work on that.
Cool. Yeah, no,
we started doing that outreach for expiring SSL certs. Scott, you're actually on, because you're such a long time customer, you're still on our previous gateway stack, which we're replacing everyone with the new gateway we call Aries. And one of the huge benefits to that is Let's Encrypt just being built right now. And for those who are not familiar with Let's Encrypt, it's a free way to get an SSL cert. They're short duration certs, usually 90 days, and you have to basically keep renewing it, and then you get free SSL as a result. You just have to keep renewing it. So what we've done with our next generation gateway is we've built that straight into the whole system. There's a new Atomic web interface where you can request SSL certs. It'll apply them automatically for your app. It'll keep them renewed. You don't have to do anything else. And then with that same system, you can manage your own SSL cert. So if you still want to have a paid cert or wildcard cert, you can just import it from there. And that new system also automatically sends those emails out when they're expiring. So we are sending out emails for any customer if we are noticing that their site's SSL is going to expire. Sort of like we'll do that manually, but the new system does that automatically for every hosted site. So definitely we should get that upgrade on the books for you soon, Scott. So you can benefit from the Aries gateway. It has that Let's Encrypt cert, so you don't even have to go and buy a new cert in the future. You can just have it for free, and it'll renew automatically. And there's a lot of other benefits to Aries as well.
Yeah, Sean will fill me in on that one. As long as we get the premium SSL, so we have the fancy bar at the top, that's what matters to us.
Oh yeah, if you want the bar, you'll have to get the paid cert, but it will be self-service. You won't even have to contact support to get that done. You just go click around. But obviously, we're happy to do it for you as well.
It's all about the bar.
I'm high maintenance, you know that.
Okay, let's see here. So if another theme, Armand, I was going to bring this up because this could be relevant to other people who have this, but April 16, they had some slowness issues and we had determined it to be related to calls to admin Ajax. Can you talk about what that is and what we do? I know we have some ability there, you mentioned with GET requests and caching and whatnot, but can you maybe just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so just a quick intro to admin Ajax. It's an endpoint in WordPress. It's been there for a long time. It's used for all kinds of things. You can either make a post request to it or a GET request. And obviously, if it's a post request, you can't cache it. But if it's a GET request, you can, as long as you're not sending cache busting headers, like the set cookie or the cache control max age 0 or things like that. So I think the issue with that slow site event in April was it was every request basically invoking a call to admin Ajax, and it was returning image URLs that had spaces in it, which was causing a bunch of redirects to happen and 404s. So I believe we just kind of jumped in and made some emergency patches to get things back to normal.
Yeah, my take on what happened there, yeah, this thing with the image spaces, it sounded like, Scott, you guys had a special plugin set up so any 404s would bounce that person to the homepage, and there was something happening wherein it didn't like the fact that there were spaces in the image names, and so those calls, like 5 of them on a page, you'd then get like 5 redirects to the homepage happening in the background. So it was like amplifying each page request to like ×5. At least that's what I made of it.
Yeah, so this is one of those situations where it's good to have a managed WordPress company hosting your site, because they'll have engineers that will be able to understand what's going on, and secondarily, like have the ability to engage and make changes on your behalf in an emergency. If you're just hosting on your own, you grab an AWS account, spin up a server, and run your site. The second something you don't understand happens, you're kind of on your own, or you might have to reach out and try to find somebody who can assist you with that problem. So that's just stuff that you get from being on PageLead. Like, all of our engineers work on WordPress all day long. We're always fixing this or that problem for our customers, and a lot of the times, it's really easy for us to spot, oh, hey, this thing is the thing that's causing your problem, and here's what we can do to fix it, or here's what we did as an emergency patch just to get you back online. And we always try to sort of say, like, hey, these are the exact things we did. This is why we did them, and this is what we'd recommend as a long-term fix. Some of those fixes are just having a staging environment where you can test things out first. It's really, a simple mistake like an extra space somewhere can cause all kinds of problems if you have enough traffic happening on the site. So we make it pretty easy to create a staging site. We have PageLead Sync, and we have the clone tool that makes it easy to have a testing environment that's running on the same server, running on the same hosting stack that your live site's on. So those types of things are helpful for preventing a simple problem like an extra space from causing a larger problem in production.
Cool. Scott, I was going to ask you, can you just give us roughly, or whatever you're able to quantify, when one of these newsletters goes out, what's that worth to you? Like, downtime during one of these critical periods where now 700,000 subscribers just got your email. Like, are we talking thousands of dollars an hour? Well, what is the uptime worth in that scenario?
Well, so of our traffic, 41% of it is organic search, and 28.5% of it is email. So 30% of our traffic is generated by that newsletter. So being able, or having going down when the newsletter goes out, is huge in terms of the submissions, and that's how we get paid. And so if we're down and our submission rate goes down, then our clients cancel their advertising campaigns, because our business is made on being able to deliver now. We don't have long subscription rates. We don't sit there and try to tie people into year-long agreements. If we don't produce, then you can cancel, and you're only with us for a month. And so it's critical that we don't have any downtime, because especially when we're talking about some of these case values could be, literally $1 million for some of these clients. And some of these campaigns, they might sit there and run with us for a long time. Especially when you're looking at the pharmaceutical, the drug, medical device torts, that person is going to hit multiple websites. Typically, they're going to submit their information to us, and they're going to submit it to other people. And so if they try to submit it to us and it doesn't work, then they're gone forever. And our client could miss out on a 6 or 7 figure case, and then we lose upwards of anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 a month in revenue from just one case.
Yeah. So it's just imperative that you stay up during those sends at any cost, basically.
Yes. Yeah. That's where I get pitched by friends or old associates with other hosting providers. And I've got friends that say, Scott, let's just go ahead and move you onto your own Amazon stack. PageLead is built on Amazon. what do you need to spend all the money you're spending on them? I think it's pretty simple. I can't go down, and I don't want to have 2 or 3 WordPress engineers that are super experts that I'm spending, $300,000 or $400,000 a year in salaries and benefits on, when I can pay Pagely who has these experts on it 24/7. That if something breaks, usually you tell me, and I'm not sitting there freaking out, because typically as soon as someone goes, Scott, something's broken, a lot of times I already have an email from you saying, hey, we got an alert, we're looking at it, we'll get back to you within a couple minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's critical, and that was always when I built things up. Since I know enough technically to get into trouble, but I don't know enough to log into the server and take a look at who's hitting it, and I lost those skills 15 years ago when I went into management. So it's critical that we've got a team like you guys behind it that can sit there and look at the server and see exactly what's happening at any given time and be able to address it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there's another benefit too. So that's one for sure of having, have it be an OpEx versus a CapEx. You can just pay a monthly fee and you know that it's handled versus having to have like the overhead of salary and whatnot. Not to mention the 24/7 thing. But I think the other interesting thing is that, like Armand says, this is just a day in the life for us. We see this bots hitting sites and hacking attempts and downtime and whatnot. It's like we deal with this on a daily basis. And so we have this broad exposure to all kinds of attack vectors and things that happen that I think, an N of one, a single developer that's on staff with you, they see tunnel vision of what they're seeing on your site, but we have that benefit of seeing across, thousands of sites what's happening and what the design patterns are, what works and whatnot. So cool.
Right. Yeah. And just I had to switch from my ear pods. So just by having that breadth of experience, I know you're not just seeing these problems on my website, but you're going to see it on, the hundreds of people that you work with. So that's the confidence, and that's why I don't switch. I'm not going to switch to save $1,000 a month. It doesn't make sense. I could lose that in 5 minutes of downtime. So
yeah,
let's go ahead and stay up, and I'm happy to pay a premium when I know that stuff gets taken care of swiftly. And then I don't get gouged like these other guys that were sitting there saying, hey, go pay somebody else, $20, $30, $40,000 for code updates, when it was just Armand spending 10 or 15 minutes looking at it going, oh, let's comment out these lines of code and you're fine. That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, because we have your live traffic and we have logs and we have empirical data that shows us where the issue is, I think it's one thing to get pitched by a guy who claims he can rewrite your site and optimize the code and make it run better. But it's another thing to have the actual code running and the logs and everything to be able to diagnose it and say, oh yeah, we see this every day. We know that these are the 3 lines that need to be commented out. So.
Right. Exactly.
Cool. All right. Well, there's other stuff we could talk about, but I think in the interest of time, I wanted to leave a little bit of room at the end, because you were actually the very first customer to do something that we dabbled with, which is this idea of what we call a Pressformance audit. And so we went through that. Armand, would you be willing maybe to just like chat through some of the things in that? So what we did is we produced a 14-page audit report, essentially, of things that we see, opportunities for improvement. These are obviously just recommendations. Some of it is just verifying that you're good on things like security, but we're able to suggest like future enhancements. If you want to spend on it, here's where we see the opportunity to make the site run faster and whatnot. So Armand, I don't know if you've got it open. Maybe you could just kind of step through a couple of those.
Yeah, I've got it over here. So yeah, the Pressformance audit is basically kind of taking all the things that we recommend on our knowledge base about making sure your site's caching, common areas for improvements, the most common things that could make a WordPress site slow. And we kind of follow our own advice and go through that for your website. And at the end, we compile a report that's easier to digest and something that you can hand to a developer to start making some fixes on for you. And the type of things we cover in that report is seeing if your site is caching well, seeing if there's any excessive cache purging happening, which can also hurt the cache hit rate, making sure that your site is properly using rPress CDN, because that's the most efficient way to get the static content out to your visitors, the CDN has a higher allocation for your plan versus the bandwidth straight out of the server. We do a security audit just to make sure if there's any glaring issues like an out-of-date plugin or too many administrator accounts. We kind of recommend, we make some recommendations there, as well as make a recommendation for like two-factor authentication, things like that. We review the site plugins in use for any plugins that may be causing large queries to happen or slow queries. We make recommendations on optimizations there. And then, if there's anything specific about the customer that they came to us and said, like, yeah, give me the performance report, and here's my actual concern. Like, this is my main concern that I have. We keep a section in that report to really dig into like that specific concern that they may have. That may not be covered by the standard things that we look at. And so for top class actions, the thing that was the main concern was like backend slowness. And what we found when we looked at that was actually a pretty common issue that happens in WordPress is just large autoload options. And for those who aren't familiar, autoload options are things in the database in your WordPress site that if they're set to autoload, yes, then it loads that data on every request, whether or not the request being made needs that data. And so if you have something like a 30 megabyte autoload option, that's going to obviously have to do a lot of overhead to get that data and process it before it can serve the request. So just cutting down on those autoload options usually helps with backend slowness. There's also a couple of things I think just sort of related to the footprint of the top class action site that some plugins could use a couple of tweaks here and there, basically, so it's not loading as much data on certain pages. Things like having a lot of WP cron tasks can also take up PHP workers. We have some solutions there. We can either set up the WP Minions plugin made by 10up, which utilizes a Gearman backend to get asynchronous job queuing, or we can enable an inline cron mode, which keeps your regular PHP workers from having to be stuck handling cron tasks. Things like that, basically. The performance report, if someone just reviews like what is on in our knowledge base as far as what we cover and what we recommend in there, they can come to all those conclusions on their own. The real value of the performance report is we do all that legwork for you. It's sort of a white glove service where we'll just put it all together for you and make really clear recommendations on the problems that we find.
Cool. Yep. And I think also, Armand, you were mentioning like we do cost optimization when we can. And so like a good example of that is, Scott, you were at one point having to run on an Ant1 HA, so a fairly beefy HA pair. I think right now you're currently on a VPS2 HA. So we were able, through some of the code fixes that we did and some of that your developer has been able to apply, tune it to the point where it can actually now your traffic has grown and yet you're able to go down to a smaller instance size because it is caching well at this point.
Yeah, that was great because we were looking at, we all are always trying to optimize our expenses and not overspend. And so, yeah, it's nice when we can talk to you about that and figure out ways to shave some money without shaving performance, because with Google and organic traffic is so huge. Just remember, we look at it, 41.4% of our traffic is organic from search. So we need to make sure that we are swift, fast, and highly optimized all across the board. Otherwise, we'll get penalized. In fact, we just found out we are number 1 and 2 for class action settlement on Google. And we've been fighting to get back up there because we were a couple of years ago, but with so much competition out there, everything has to be optimized. And the performance report helped us tweak things to get a couple microseconds faster. But that couple microseconds makes a difference to Google.
That's awesome. Well, congrats on all the your continued growth and being back on top at #1 there. Is there any words, any like parting thoughts you have for someone maybe who's listening, who has a high traffic site of their own, or they're on the up and up and they're growing and they're an entrepreneur? Any just words of wisdom you have for them from your experience now, having been through this for quite a few years?
I think it's when you're growing your website, especially if you're in a position like I am, where you've got either a little technical know-how or not at all. You want to make sure that you are really working with experts in the field. And when you are growing, you want to be spending money on the right things. Now, if I had taken some salary money and put it towards the technical side and said, okay, I'm going to hire a senior level WordPress engineer to optimize my website and handle it, it would have been a very poor decision, especially early on, because that money I needed to hire writers and go into digital marketing. I needed to put that money in places that could help the revenue grow, while I could depend on a partner like Pagely to support us technically. And you just can't bring one expert into a business and have them, even if they're extremely experienced, have them have the breadth of knowledge that you need when you guys deal with hundreds of different companies on a daily basis. And my guy just deals with one. We had the same problem with our SEO side, where one of our developers said, no, you're great. And I happened to be at a conference talking to an SEO guy out there. And I said, hey, can you just check things out? Because I think that our growth is great. And he said, yeah, no, you've got this problem, this problem, this problem, and this problem. And that's because they're working with so many different clients that they see all of the issues. And so my advice would be, hire a partner that can support you technically and isn't just sitting there saying, we're going to keep you up, but they've got the ability to dig into your issues and fix them, and not nickel and dime you. I mean, that was an issue that I was having when I was working with one of the huge providers here in Phoenix. Is they said, yes, we'll go ahead and support your WordPress environment. And by the way, you need this professional services agreement that was triple the size of the hosting agreement. And, we'll be able to give you some support. While with Pagely, I've got the experts in there, and, we pay you a fair amount every month, but when Armand fixed that problem for us right up front, honestly, I was expecting a professional services bill from you guys saying, hey, yeah, we bill that at $250 an hour, $150 an hour, whatever it is. And you guys don't do that. You guys just say, hey, no, we want you up and we'll take care of it. And you're not trying to charge me an extra $150,000, $500,000, whatever it is a month for some of these odd requests that come through. You just take care of it. And that helps lower the stress levels as a client. And that adds a lot of value for me. So that's my advice to entrepreneurs, is just don't necessarily go out and hire the super techiest, most expert guy you can get. Look at your money and see if you can bring that in to a partner that will handle it, so you can focus those big dollars on something else to help you actually grow your business and not just support it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, Scott, thank you so much for taking the time today. If people listening feel they might be leaving some class action money on the table and they want to use your service, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Just go to topclassactions.com, sign up for our free newsletter. You'll get an update from my people. You get an update from me personally every single week, just talking about how things are going. We make sure that you don't miss out on anything. We are 100% free for consumers. We'll never charge consumers a dime to access our website and find literally the thousands and thousands of dollars a month or a year that you're missing out on. I just reported we just reported on some different settlements that pay out up to almost $4,000 per claim for some different automobile-related settlements. And, if you get spam phone calls, you hate those, come to us. We have class actions that cover it, and those typically pay out hundreds of dollars per claim. So it's one of those things. If you need cash, go to topclassactions.com, sign up for the free newsletter, and be persistent and be patient, because these things don't pay out quickly. They take months or years to pay out. But if you consistently submit claims, I have viewers that pull in $4,000 to $10,000 a year from claims that they're legitimately claiming, just by paying attention.
Yeah, so go throw some lines in the water now, sit on them, and get some cash in a few months.
Exactly.
Cool. Exactly. All right, awesome.
Like spam calls a day, so I might go sign up.
I was just thinking the same thing, and I'm even on the do not call registry and using Google's block on Google Voice, and I'm still getting a bunch of robocalls. So I may need to sign up myself.
Yeah, you should. I mean, I've got my interviews that's coming up in about an hour. We're going to be covering 4 different new TCPA lawsuits that's the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. And those are all settlements that are done by larger companies that are just spamming for text messages or phone calls. And those things pay out anywhere from $50 to a couple $100 per claim. And so if you're getting annoyed that much, then by all means, submit your information and get that money back in your pocket. So you're like, yeah, you called me and you spam me, but now I got $200, so neener.
Cool. All right, well, fellas, I'll let you go. Thanks again so much. For the people listening, you can come back to the blog. We're going to be putting these things up, hopefully doing a series of this. And so let us know what you think. If you found value from this, leave a comment, and we're happy to chime in and answer your questions. All right, everybody.
Thank you.